Hey, and welcome back to another video. So in this video, I will be doing a full review of the Nokia 2V Tella by Verizon. This phone is also extremely identical to the Nokia C2 Tava and C2 Tenon, so this review could basically be used for those phones as well. But there will be some specific things to this phone, mainly in terms of software, which is related to Verizon, that I'll be talking about as well. I will be giving each aspect of this phone a rating out of 10, and at the end I will be averaging the rating so that you know exactly where this phone stands. And everything will be divided into multiple sections down in the slider bar. So if you want to jump to a specific section, you can go ahead and do that. Before we jump right in, don't forget to smash that like button as always and hit that subscribe button as well. And also check out my social media down in the description below. And now let's jump right into this video. So I initially wanted to do a review on this phone because I found out that it was one of the most badly reviewed phones on Verizon's website with the rating as you can see here. And I just wanted to know why it was that bad. And then eventually I found this one for a mere $28 or $30, brand new sealed in box. So then I knew that there was something seriously wrong. I still had to purchase the activation plan, which was $40, but considering that I didn't renew my Mint Mobile for this month, I thought I will use Verizon with this phone for 1 month and see what it's like. I've also done a full unboxing on this phone, which you can find up here in the card above, and I'll also link it down in the description below. I put aside my iPhone 12 Pro Max for the past week. I used this phone for an entire week. So I put aside the iPhone 12 Pro Max and I only use this phone for communication through WhatsApp and email, but everything else, managing my YouTube, comments, Instagram, everything else basically I did on the Nokia 2V Tella, and this is my 100% honest review. The 2V Tella starts off with a full price of $168. So that is its full price if you want to purchase it downright. But like I said, I got it for a mere $28 because of the bad ratings. But you can also get this on contract, I think, with Verizon for a 24-month payment plan, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people will do. It is a lower budget phone, so it's the lower end of the budget spectrum, and everything that I say about this phone is with respect to its price range, so just keep that in mind when watching the rest of this video. So the first thing we're going to talk about is first impressions, and that is something quite important when you're purchasing a new mobile phone. So after I had confirmed my purchase of my network for the month, and after turning it on and stuff, and I finally got into the UI, I noticed that it was a bit sluggish, but then again, it was a new phone and it was still setting things up. Then I went to the Verizon app to log into my account to see all the details, because I have not logged into my Verizon for a very, very long time. And I noticed immediately that the phone is extremely slow. I kind of chalked that up to it running updates and stuff in the background, downloading updates and stuff. And I tried to log into my Verizon account. However, the Verizon app crashed while I was filling in my information, and I had to basically fill everything in again. And after I've done that also, it was very, very slow. It was really laggy. It was very slow. And I was wondering what was up with this. But then when I checked the app drawer, I found out that it had started downloading apps that were not even on my account after I had logged in. These apps included stuff like Disney, Candy Crush, Coin Master, Netflix, Sudoku, a lot of stuff that I didn't really need. And this was auto-downloading once Verizon had confirmed everything. And I could stop that. And eventually the phone went back to its normal performance. But that's kind of annoying. I mean, for a person who just paid for their plan for unwanted apps to start downloading automatically, just using up their data. So that was a very bad first impression, and the phone was just completely slow as well. It completely slowed down when all those apps started downloading as well. And some of those apps, well, basically all of those apps I was able to delete those apps, so it's not permanent bloatware, but still, it is very annoying. So for a first impression, pretty bad first impression, I'd give it a 5 out of 10. So not off to a great start here, but there's much more to talk about. So let us now move on to talking about design and build quality, and we'll have a quick go around of the phone and then discuss everything else. So up front, we have the front facing camera up top alongside the speakerphone and the Nokia branding as well. At the bottom, we have quite a big chin, but that is expected at this price range. On this side, we have the volume rockers and power button as well. And there's a small notch here to put your finger and open the back cover, and I'll show you the insides of the battery bay later. On this side, we have the Google Assistant button, and at the bottom, we have our USB-C port and a microphone as well. Up top, we have the 3.5mm headphone jack, which you don't usually see in a lot of phones these days, but you do see them in budget phones. And we also have a microphone as well. At the back, we have our speaker grill, Verizon branding, Nokia branding, a flash, and the dual camera as well. So that is just a quick go around of the Nokia 2V Tella. Now for build quality, this phone actually surprised me quite a lot, because it is not a very flimsily built phone. It is actually a very solidly built phone. Feels great in the hand. It is very solid. It has a textured back. It's lightly textured. Let me stop talking so you can hear it. So lightly textured, not too bad. I hate I hate really rough or pronounced textures. So a lightly textured back is really nice. It's moderately grippy. Also, something that I'd like to throw in here, the buttons on this phone are really sensitive. They're not too bad, but they are towards the most sensitive side. However, when you put a case on this phone, like I've done here, the button sensitivity goes up a huge notch. So if you don't like really sensitive buttons, and I can imagine it getting automatically pressed when it's in your pocket or when you're holding it like this, I noticed that my Google Assistant button keeps getting pressed, and everything what I was doing gets paused for the Google Assistant. So if that annoys you, you can go into settings, and then you can go into system and then gestures, and you can turn off the Google Assistant button from here as well. As for the power button, if you don't like a really sensitive power button and volume buttons, you can search for a case that has cutouts instead of instead of a full button cover, as you can see here. So you can just go for a case with some cutouts. Just something to point out. But overall, the build quality for a sub $200 phone, it's a very good build quality. Feels nice in the hand. It does not feel plasticky too much. I mean, it is plastic, but it does not give you that horrible plastic feeling. It is not like when it's squeezed and stuff, it doesn't like creak, like the back cover does not creak, because this is a removable back cover. And overall, it feels really nice in the hand. So a solidly built phone. It also comes in a bunch of different colors for the C2 Tenon and the C2 Tava. But for the 2V Tella, this blue is the only color available. Overall, for its price, I'll give its build quality a 8 out of 10. Alright, so now let's move on to discussing the display on the Nokia 2V Tella. So let's run down the specs of the display, and then we shall discuss. So the display technology on this thing is IPS LCD. So it is an IPS LCD panel. It's 5.4 inches with a resolution of 720p by 1440 pixels, which gives it a pixel density of roughly 295 pixels per inch. And it also has an 18:9 aspect ratio. Now, this display surprised me a lot, because a lot of the ratings, like I mentioned earlier, they had mentioned that the display is pretty crap. But when I used this over time, I noticed that that's not the case. I mean, for the price range, again, with respect to its price range, this is a very good display. Now let's talk firstly about brightness and outdoor performance, because a lot of budget phones do struggle with brightness and outdoor performance. If I increase the brightness here, let me go ahead and increase the brightness to full. As you can see, even with this somewhat of a darker wallpaper, the phone has a pretty bright display. And this carries on to outdoor performance as well, because the outdoor performance on this phone is excellent. I can see easily in bright sunlight conditions, and I really don't have to put the brightness way up as well. I can keep it on a higher medium setting and the brightness is just gonna be just fine. And if you want to make it extra bright, you can turn the background to a lighter color instead of using the dark mode, and it'll work just fine. Let us also now talk about colors and color accuracy and saturation and stuff. The colors are towards the most saturated side. However, they're not oversaturated and they're really sharp. So even though if you have a closer look at this display, because of the low resolution, you will see the pixels. At a arm's reach glance, when you'll be mostly using this phone, you cannot see the pixels and the images are really sharp. And this is really good news for a $168 phone. They nailed the brightness, they nailed the outdoor performance, the colors are good, they're accurate, they're not overly saturated like on most budget phones, and they're sharp as well. This is a really good display that I was perfectly happy with using here in 2021. And by the way, that comes from a person who's been using an iPhone 12 Pro Max all this time, which has one of the best displays in the smartphone market, which is an OLED display, which outclasses this LCD in many ways. However, this LCD still held its own, and I was pleasantly surprised how well it performed. So Nokia really nailed the LCD display on the Nokia 2V Tella. For its price, I'd gladly give this display an easy 9 out of 10. Now we're in the hardware portion of the Nokia 2V Tella review. Now this is where things get a little less than pleasant. Now, I know I said everything is with respect to price, but I believe they could have done a slightly better job than what they did with the processor on this thing. Now, the processor on this thing is a MediaTek processor. It is a MediaTek Helio A22, which is a processor based on a 16 nanometer process. The variant of the A22 is the MT6761. So the MediaTek MT6761 Helio A22. It is a quad-core processor clocked in at 2 GHz with a Cortex A53 core. And it is not an ideal processor. To start things off, it has horrible RAM management. Now, this thing has 2 gigs of RAM, but I've seen phones with stock Android and 2 gigs of RAM do way better than this. This thing has some serious RAM management issues. If you're running heavier apps, you really have to have other stuff closed in the background. It's just because this thing struggles heavily with RAM management. The GPU on this thing is a PowerVR GE8320. It has a micro SD expansion slot as well and 16 gigs of internal memory. Like I said, it also has 2 gigs of RAM as well. The 16 gigs of internal memory goes pretty fast because it's 2021. And once you download all the major apps, you'll have probably like 2 or 3 gigs of storage left. So I recommend you getting a $6 to $7 SanDisk 32 gig memory card or a $12 64 gig card, because the 16 gigs goes really fast. Now back to the processor. Like I said, it's a MediaTek processor. It's an A22. This processor was built in 2018. So it's a 2018 processor. And I mean, yeah, I get it. They did it for the price, but I believe they could have gone a bit more above that. While running heavier apps, this phone really cannot do anything else. You could shut down, you could basically lock the phone for a minute and try and unlock it again. It will completely freak out. Like, I ran Call of Duty and I locked it with the power button, tried to unlock it again. It took about a minute for it to start working properly again. And we'll talk about Call of Duty in the gaming section of this review as well, because that is also something to talk about. This phone really struggles with RAM management, and for what they put in here, the specs, I really am somewhat disappointed. And in this review, I can't give you the full perspective of things because it varies from day-to-day use. Sometimes when I'm doing a review, things go into perfect conditions because I've closed all the apps in the background and stuff like that. So it may seem fast. However, over time stuff gets basically reality sets in and you notice that things are horribly slow. But either way, I'd give this overall in terms of specifications, a rating of a 6 out of 10, because I believe they could have done a bit better than what they've put in this phone, because it struggles with RAM management. And I'll be extending on this RAM management issue when I'm talking about the software on this phone, which comes right up next. We are now in the software section of this review, and right out of the box, the Nokia 2V Tella runs stock Android 10. So it is a 100% stock Android experience, which I really love. I generally dislike these skins put on by manufacturers, and I always prefer a stock Android experience. The only two bloat apps that cannot be deleted, and I wouldn't call them bloat because they're necessary for the network, are the Verizon Cloud app and the My Verizon app as well. Everything else is 100% stock. And if you have the C2 tenant completely unlocked, the only apps you'll have are the Google services and the phone and the messenger, the phone and the message app only. So 100% stock Android experience, big thumbs up on that. However, now as you can see, the phone is performing just fine. The apps are opening fast, they're closing fast, they're running really fast. I can open and close them fast. It's a good performer, right? Well, that's because there aren't many apps running in the background. Now, like I said earlier, how the processor and the other internals tie into the software experience and how they basically affect the software experience. This is where stuff gets a bit iffy. It's when a lot of apps start running in the background and you're multitasking heavily. This is basically what you can expect. Okay, so there's a bunch of apps running in the background, and when you try to open them, as you see, there's a bunch of stutter. Some apps open just fine, but then again, you see the performance is much different. It really does have a slight toll on the performance. As you can see, Google Chrome took a serious while to open there, as you saw with that. And then we can open YouTube Studio. The smaller apps will still open just fine, but as you can see, it is not as smooth as it was before, and this only gets worse with the more apps you open. And I can imagine now, since this is not my full-time phone, I'm not going to put too many apps on this thing, but someone who does use this as a full-time phone will have a problem. As you can see, Discord had to reload itself. The RAM cleared, so Discord had to reload itself, and then back on my Discord. And again, the performance is not the same. No, the camera app does not want to open at all instantly. There you go, it's stuck. Okay, so that issue is there when you do have a lot of apps running in the background. So for a quick browser demo on the Nokia 2V Tella, let's load up Nokia's website, Nokia Mobile US. And as you saw, the Google page loaded pretty fast. Web pages do indeed load quite fast on this phone, but we're using Wi-Fi, so your 4G or 3G performance will vary. But to be fair to this phone, for optimum conditions, we're using Wi-Fi. So Apple's website is next, and it's usually the best test to see whether a phone can load a website, because Apple's website is really heavy. And as you saw, it loaded almost instantly, so it is a good performer in terms of browsing there. Let's load one more website. Let's load Nokia's main website. Again, this loaded really fast. Nokia Corporation, and it has loaded, as you can see. When scrolling, it sometimes just lags behind on animations and images, but once you stop scrolling, the images load in. But on scrolling, sometimes, as you saw there, it takes a while. But that's no big deal. It is perfect for browsing the web and just doing basic internet tasks. Another point that I'd like to bring up is if you want to update all your apps at the same time and you hit update all in the Play Store, most of the time that will either freeze the phone and make it start stuttering, or it will crash the Play Store. Now, both of that happened randomly to me. It basically happens at random. So I'd recommend updating apps in chunks, like 5 at a time, 5 at a time, 5 at a time, not all at the same time, because that completely slows down the phone. Also, if you're running a heavy application like Call of Duty and you lock the phone and you try to unlock the phone while the heavy application is running in the background, the phone's going to freak out. I already mentioned that earlier, and I'll mention that in the gaming portion of this review as well. Also, it does have trouble on Twitch, and when you're watching a live stream on Twitch, if the streamer's automatic source is set to like 1080p 60 FPS, it's going to have trouble streaming that as well. However, if you're really close to the router, the issue goes away, but at a longer distance, it kind of does have trouble streaming higher resolutions. However, if you set it to 720p 60 FPS, you're going to be just fine. It could be a resolution thing, or it could be just the Wi-Fi card on this phone isn't up to par when compared to other phones as well. So that is something general that I also wanted to mention. Apart from that, the 100% stock Android experience without any unnecessary bloatware is just amazing. You have your news app towards this side, as you can see here. All the great news regarding to your cookies based on your Google account appears here, and for me it's all technology. So as you can see, well, gaming and technology, as you can see, there's Apex Legends, there's Ubisoft, there's some spyware news going on. So everything that I need to know is on this side. As usual, you find this on all Android phones these days, so that is a great feature as well. Widgets on this phone also, you can put a certain amount of widgets. So I have the music widget from Black Player here, so the Black Player widget, a battery widget, a notes app widget, and I did have a couple of other widgets as well, which I took away. Widgets don't seem to affect the performance too badly, but I wouldn't go overboard on the widgets as well. So minimal amount of widgets will keep the performance just fine. And as you can see, I've turned off all the apps again, and it is running just fine. It is really fast and snappy, and it also has very minimum animations, as you saw there. So that's also quite good. I don't really like too many animations. So overall, it's really hard to blame the software experience. It's more got to do with the bad RAM management and the processor on this phone, which is, like I said, an outdated processor. Like I said, it runs stock Android 10, so will it get the Android 11 update? The answer is truly, I don't know. This phone is not on Nokia's roadmap of updates as of 2021, but you can bet that the people over at XDA will have an unofficial update for this thing. But as far as official updates go, as far as now is concerned, at the time of this video, there is no official update for the Nokia 2V Tella. Overall, I'll give the software experience on this phone a 8 out of 10. It's because it's stock Android, and we can't really base the software experience over the processor, because I already gave a somewhat of a bad rating for the processor and the hardware on this phone. So the software, it's technically not the software's fault. So I'll give the software experience a 8 out of 10 on the Nokia 2V Tella. Now let's discuss gaming on the Nokia 2V Tella, and in the sake of time, I'll be only testing Call of Duty Mobile. I already tested Pokemon Go and it runs just fine. However, with any heavier title, like I mentioned earlier, any heavier app, keep your RAM cleared in the background, because this phone has horrible RAM management. So close all your apps if they're running in the background. The other thing that I have to mention is games like Pokemon Go and Call of Duty are all above 1 gig. Call of Duty is actually around 4 gigs. So it takes up a lot of space. So make sure you have your memory card, and your photos and songs and stuff are all transferred to your memory card, because out of the box, there's no way to transfer apps to the memory card on this phone. There are some mods that you can check online, so you can Google online for those mods that allow you to actually transfer games and apps to the memory card. So you'll have to do that in your own time, because that's an entire topic on its own. However, have your memory card in your phone and transfer all your music and stuff to your memory card, because Call of Duty will take up a lot of space, and smaller game titles, I'm assuming, won't take that much space. But everyone generally likes to play Fortnite, Call of Duty, Pokemon Go, which are heavier titles, and they take up most space as well. So we'll be testing Call of Duty, as you can see here. Now the initial setup when you load up the game after downloading it takes about 4 minutes. It's really slow, 3 to 4 minutes. Yeah, 4 minutes is kind of a stretch, but around 3 minutes. It takes quite a while. Now when I did that on my Motorola G stylus, which I usually play this game on, I did not have any of those issues. I got signed in and everything within a minute. But the Nokia 2V Tella does take around 3 minutes. But once you're in the menu, as you can see here, the menu works fine. There's minimum stutter and it's a pleasant experience overall. But remember, keep all the other apps closed in the background. On my Motorola G stylus, like I said, which I usually play this game, when I'm going to play the game after initial setup, like when I go on into the future playing the game on everyday use, it takes about 10 seconds to get into the menu. However, on the Nokia 2V Tella, it will take about 30 to 40 seconds to get into the menu after hitting the Call of Duty icon. So it's a bit towards the slower side, but then again, with this processor and bad RAM management, that's what you can expect. Now let's load up a game of Call of Duty and see how it runs. Okay, so I have a game going here, as you can see, and I'm not too good with the touch controls. I'm only used to an Xbox controller, so if I get destroyed, just ignore it. Yeah, I'm horrible with touch controls, but as you can see, the game is running just fine on this phone. It's just terrible with touch controls. Where are these guys? Yeah, there's a bit of stutter in this room, as you see here. There's a bit of stutter, so it's not running 100% perfect. Yeah, there's a lot of stutter. So it is not even as close to as a good performer as my Moto G stylus. However, it is still playable. So as you saw with that gameplay, the Nokia 2V Tella does run Call of Duty just fine. However, you should avoid areas with more textures to load in and more objects to load in as well. And if you stay in the open, you'll be just fine. Otherwise, in enclosed areas with a lot of textures, especially with an FPS game like that, you will be at a disadvantage because you'll be stuttering and your opponent probably won't. Anyway, I'll give the overall gaming experience on this phone a 7 out of 10. Basically, that's as much as I'll give it. I'm not hating on it too much because of the processor and the RAM. So 7 out of 10 is a decent score, but just don't expect too much out of the gaming experience on the Nokia 2V Tella. So now let us discuss cameras on the Nokia 2V Tella. And the main shooter at the back is an 8 megapixel autofocus camera, and the secondary camera is a 2 megapixel fixed focus camera. It has a single LED flash, so single tone, single LED flash, and also has an HDR feature as well as a panorama feature as well. It can shoot video at 1080p at 30 FPS. Now, moving on to the front camera. The front camera on the 2V Tella is a 5 megapixel shooter that can shoot video at 720p at 30 FPS, and the camera is also a fixed focus camera as well. So this is the camera interface on the Nokia 2V Tella. It's pretty basic. Down here we have our options. We can take a photo, we have gallery, we have enhancements, video, photo, portrait mode. We can switch the camera from down here as well, and we have our panorama and time-lapse square photo options as well. Up here we have our settings that we can go into: location of storage, location tags, burst shots, photo resolution, etc, etc. We have our timer, HDR flash, and we also have the thingamajig feature here. What was it called? Okay, motion on feature. We have the motion on feature up there as well. So overall, a pretty basic camera interface, nothing too much. This is simple stock Android camera interface that you'd usually find on any stock Android phone. This is just the way Nokia did it. So now let's move on to the rest of the camera discussion. Now, the camera situation on this phone is really, how should I put it? It's good and it's also terrible. Now, why do I say that? Because the daytime photography is actually really impressive for the price. Again, we're talking with respect to the price. But the nighttime photography is a bit funky, and we'll be discussing that as we go with the camera samples that I've taken for this camera. So now let's start rolling the camera samples, starting off with the rear camera, and I'll also include some selfies from the front camera as well as portrait shots from the front camera, and then we'll also go on to video from the front camera and video from the back camera at daytime as well, and then we'll also go on to the same stuff at night as well. So now let's roll the photo set. So here are some samples from the front camera. Now, as you can see, it does have some trouble with exposure here. But then again, from a 5 megapixel fixed focus camera, that's what you can basically expect. The portrait mode from the front camera feels a bit artificial, but it's nothing too bad. I've seen worse portrait shots from slightly higher end phones on their front cameras as well. So I'd really be okay with using the portrait feature on this front camera, and it is not too bad as well. Now moving on to the video sample, and I'll be not talking over the video so you can hear the audio. However, the video on this phone is pretty underwhelming. I wouldn't say it's crap, but it is towards the more underwhelming side in terms of exposure and stuff like that. And I believe they could have done a little bit better on this. Anyway, I'll roll the video. So this video is at 1080p at 30 FPS, shot during the day. Alright, now moving on to nighttime photography on the Nokia 2V Tella, and this is somewhat where all the bad that I mentioned comes out. I mean, it's not terrible, but it could have been better. There are phones from 2010, 2011, 2012, like the Nokia N8, the Nokia N9, that actually take better photos at night than the Nokia 2V Tella. And now you must be saying you can't really compare a photography focused phone like the Nokia N8 to a budget phone from 2021, but you should realize that the Nokia N8 was released 11 years ago. So a flagship camera phone from 11 years ago taking better pictures than a lower end phone from 2021, it should be technically on par by now, but that's not the case here, and that's basically what you can expect from the Nokia 2V Tella. The camera has trouble focusing at night. When it does focus and there is a properly lit image, the subjects are blurred out and they seem like they're painted. They're really artificial. It has lighting issues. As you can see, some pictures are overexposed, some of them are underexposed. It has trouble getting colors accurate, and lights with certain colors, for example, colored lights, those don't appear as normal. They appear as grayed out, or they just appear as white light. So it has trouble focusing on lights as well. So it's really struggling with nighttime photography. And at night, if you try to take close-ups with this camera, it also seriously has some issues getting into focus. So if you try to take close-ups with this camera at the nighttime, it's gonna be a slight problem. Also, multiple light sources. As you can see with this RGB keyboard, it has multiple light sources, and no matter how much I tried, it would not focus onto a single focal point on the keyboard. It clearly has trouble focusing at night. But overall, the photos are usable, but they're bare minimum, maybe a bit more than bare minimum. I mean, I've seen worse than this. This is not the worst. But I believe they could have done slightly better with the nighttime photography, maybe raised the price to $200 and done slightly better with the camera, but this is what we got. Anyway, now moving on to some selfies taken at night from the fixed focus 5 megapixel front camera. They're usable, they work. You really can't complain. This is what you'll get from a phone at this price range in terms of selfie cameras or front cameras. And this is what it is on the Nokia 2V Tella. Now moving on to the video quality at night. Again, it's not the best, it's not terrible, but it's not great either. So 1080p video shot at 30 FPS. I'm gonna roll the video and then we'll discuss after that. So as you saw with all those samples, overall, the photos during the day and the night, they're just bare average. All I can say is just bare average. They're usable, but they could have been slightly better. Like I said, they could have increased the price to maybe $200 and done a slightly better job with the cameras. Because then again, this is Nokia. At one point in time, they were known for the best cameras in the market. So at this price range, they could have slightly done something better. Maybe even tone it down on the display. Maybe keep the brightness portion of the display and like tone it down with the colors and stuff and put that money into a slightly better camera, I guess. They could have just shuffled their budget around, but I honestly feel they could have done slightly better with the camera and toned it down somewhere else. But this is where we stand with the Nokia 2V Tella's camera. It's usable, but it's not the best. It could have been better. Anyway, I'll give the camera on the 2V Tella a decent 7 out of 10 as a final score. Alrighty, so now let's talk about battery and battery performance on the Nokia 2V Tella. So to access the battery, like I showed you earlier, there's a place to put your finger and you can easily take off the back cover like that. The back cover also comes off pretty easily, even with your case. Like if you're trying to take your case off, the back cover also comes flying off sometimes. But it's a really easy access cover to the battery. So the battery on the Nokia 2V Tella is a removable 3000 milliamp hour battery, 11.55 watt hours. The model is a WT130. It is a solid battery overall for this price range, and since it's removable, you can have another one that you can quickly swap and use it if you wish. It's manufactured by Guangdong Fenghua New Energy Company Limited in China, and these are the other specifications for you to read. It's a lithium polymer battery as well. Now, on Nokia's website and on their YouTube promotional video for this phone, they advertised this as a 2-day battery life phone. That's not the case. On heavy use, it'll last maybe a bit more than 3/4 of a day. it'll last you throughout your entire workday, but once you get home, maybe at around 8 to 9, it'll start to die off. So it is usable throughout the entire day, but it's definitely not a 2-day battery. If it's medium use, yeah, you'll get throughout the entire day. And if it's light use, maybe 1.5, 1.25 day, maybe. But that's about it. It's definitely not a 2-day battery life if you're a heavy user. Now you can turn on the battery saver mode, or the low power mode on this phone, and it will definitely last for 2 days. However, you'll also have to use it at a medium pace, and still heavy use will not get you to even 2 days on low power mode. Now, what I'm saying, all what I'm saying is based on a mixed usage between 4G and Wi-Fi, so it's really hard to gauge exactly what the battery life will be, because it's a mixture of 4G and Wi-Fi. But this is an average what I got throughout my entire week of usage. And I can easily say that on medium use, it's clearly around 1 day. Heavy use, less than a day. Light use, maybe a bit more than a day, but that's about it. Also, a lot of reviews on the Verizon website and here and there on YouTube comments and stuff said that this phone overheats a lot. That's not true. This phone does not overheat too bad. It does heat up, but it does not overheat, and it's not hard on your hand. It's not going to burn your hand, or it's not uncomfortable or anything. But it does heat up a bit, but it's not as bad as the YouTube reviews would tell you, or the reviews on Verizon's website. Overall, I'll give this battery a 7.5 out of 10. Nothing too bad, nothing too great. Nokia kind of overestimated the battery life on this phone, so yeah, 7.5 out of 10. The 2V Tella also has a camera-based 2D face unlock, which you can only use if there's a passcode or a pattern locked onto the phone. So you still have to use your passcode or pattern. That's because the 2D face unlock is only based on camera imagery and not actual sensors, and it's not as accurate as, for example, Apple's Face ID. Now here's a demo of me using the 2D face unlock feature, and as you can see, it is towards the slower side, but I've seen worse performers than this. It only works at certain angles, I've noticed, but if you generally hold the phone at the angle at which you would generally use it at, and a few inches away from your face, it will unlock. But I believe it's much faster just to use your pattern or your passcode, because the face unlock feature is towards the slower side. But that's just an extra feature that the Nokia 2V Tella already has. Having the face unlock feature turned on also made the phone do something like this at times, where the touchscreen is out of focus when trying to unlock the phone, especially on the pattern unlock. But eventually this kind of resolved itself over time, and I do not have this problem anymore. It was just within around the first or second day of use. Now for a demo on the rear firing speaker of the Nokia 2V Tella. Now, since it's a rear firing speaker, when you hold the phone like this, if you're watching a movie or watching a stream or a YouTube video, you're going to tend to cover it with your hand. So remember to hold it like this, not like this, or it's just going to get covered. That's just the reality of rear firing speakers. It is not a stereo speaker in any form or another. It is a mono speaker. However, it is really, really loud. It is towards the tinny side, but only after a certain volume. But it is really, really loud nevertheless. So let's open up the unboxing video to this phone as a sample. So first, let's make it max volume. So max volume. And let me go back.
To another video. So in this video I have for you a unboxing of the Nokia 2V Tella by Verizon. Now the reason I bought this phone is it is one of the most badly rated Verizon phones that I've ever seen. Like, this thing has a horrible rating on Verizon's website. This phone is basically a rebranded Nokia C2 Tava. The C2 Tava.
Okay, so you can get a idea of what the speakers are like. Basically what it's like. It's loud. It's not too bad, actually. I honestly don't mind using that speaker. It's an overall a decent speaker and a speaker that you'd find at this price range. However, the good part about it is it's loud. A lot of budget phones don't have loudspeakers. They're very, very dull. So thumbs up for the loudspeaker, and you can't expect a stereo speaker at this price range. So honestly, for the loudness and overall usability of the speaker, because it's loud but it's not horrible, I'd give the speaker an 8.5 out of 10. So now for a rating on additional features, which includes overall its ability to have a removable back, its speaker quality, its face unlock feature. And you should remember that this is a super budget phone. You can't expect extra features in too many numbers. However, we can also count the Google Assistant button as somewhat of an extra feature, but though I've turned it off because the button gets really clicky with the case on, you can still have it on if you wish. For the price and for the good speaker and the face unlock feature, which you could use or could not use, overall for extra features, and since a removable back is something that's good to have here in 2020, since not a lot of phones have it, I'd give the extra features on this phone, with respect to price, a fair 8 out of 10. So yeah, that is my rating for the 2V Tella for extra features. So we have now come to the end of this video, and we can give the Nokia 2V Tella its final score. So when all these scores, all the individual scores are tallied and averaged, the Nokia 2V Tella gets a decent 7.3 out of 10. I believe this is a good rating for what this phone is, and with regards to its price. I'm not really sure why people would just downright give this a 1 star out of 10. But then again, their opinions on Verizon's website are also valid. There were things on this phone that probably affected them more than they affected me. But at the end of the day, this is just my review on this phone, and my overall unbiased 100% fully used and experienced score is 7.3, because I did live with this phone for a week, and I'm still going to use this a bit more because I still have paid my paid for 1 month service, and that service is still active, so I've got to use that. So I'll happily still use this phone, and it'll still be okay for me to use, because I am 100% okay with this phone. Well, I wouldn't say 100%, I'd say 80% okay with this phone, as long as it doesn't start stuttering and lagging too much. I'm not a very judgmental person when it comes to budget phones, but then again, there are people who would use this phone as their daily driver, so I can imagine they were really frustrated when certain things on this phone started to act up. So 7.3 is a good score. It was kind of held down by its lack of camera performance at night and its bad RAM management and processor tending to freak out at very heavy tasks. But overall, the score of 7.3 out of 10, it's not too bad, it's not too great either. It's there in the middle, it's an average. So, as usual, I hope this video helped you out in your deciding whether you need this phone or not. Please consider other options also at this price range, or used options as well. You can get a used unlocked iPhone 7 for around $140 these days. And the iPhone 7 is getting iOS 15. And since the iPhone 6s is getting iOS 15, that means the 7 will get iOS 16. So 2 major updates coming for the iPhone 7. And at $130 to $140, I believe that's a really good deal. You could get it for cheaper if you search with a few cracks on the display, maybe some dings. If you don't really mind those, you can get it for less than $100. So look at the price range, see what your other options are, and make your purchasing decision. So as usual, I hope this video helped you. If it did, please leave a big thumbs up or a thumbs down if it didn't, and tell me why down in the comment section below. I'm always ready to read and make my videos better based on honest feedback. So leave your opinion down in the comment section below. Also hit that subscribe button, as it really helps this channel out a lot if you do hit the subscribe button. Also check out my social media down in the description below. Thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in my next video.